Thanks for that, Jakob. All right, so to introduce the panel, and by the way, this is the most qualified panel of the day. There are no fewer than 15 qualifications across these panelists. So, audience, please prepare your very technical, intellectual questions and submit as part of the Q&A. All right, so next to Jakob, who you've just met, we've got Dmitry Izotov. He's the CEO of Palladium Center Nornickel. Next to him, we've got Dr. Bernhard Fuchs, who's the SVP of Umicore. Then we've got Anton Smalberger, Senior Manager at Toyota. And finally, we've got Dominik Sperzel, Head of Trading, SVP for Heraeus. Myself, Alistair Muller, I'm a Principal Director at Partners in Performance, part of Accenture. So we were, about a year ago, acquired by Accenture. And I think the combination of the AI and the high tech and the digital enablement that Accenture brings, along with the operational and performance improvement from Partners Performance, forms a strong partnership that we can deliver really significant high value to our clients, which I think is quite exciting. All right, so on to the panel. A lot of the previous discussions were on supply. This session will focus on the demand lever, which I think needs a bit of attention. So we will discuss how the different insights and the solutions are shaping the demand profile from the various sectors. All right, so first question, Jakob, just off the back of that presentation. I think this one suits well, and you covered the question, but maybe just a nice summary. So the slower than anticipated adoption of EVs, is this set to continue or increase, and how does this impact the demand for PGMs?
I think the best chart to now reflect on is the momentum curve. Mm-hmm. So we had this hype in 2021, we had the cool down in 24, and now we have kind of a normalization. The industry matures, therefore these amplitudes get smaller, and I would expect it to now get into some normality over the next 5 years. But the normality also means that it's not going to go as fast as it was projected during the time of the hype, but it's going to go more gradually. And in terms of PGM demands, that means if we take out a forecast from McKinsey or from anybody else, which is 2-3 years old, we definitely paint a darker picture than what we should actually expect from today. The less amplitudes also mean actually that we will probably be able to plan a little bit better than we were able in the past years, which I think is also a positive news.
Okay, thanks, Jakob. So, Anton, I'm going to ask you to build on that, but I'm going to ask the second question straight away. You can merge your answers. So, how's the hybrid electric vehicles and the plug-in hydroelectric vehicles influencing PGM demand?
Okay, so the first thing I just want to say in terms of that, I like the theory behind the adoption curve. It puts it into perspective, but you must actually ask the reason why. What is causing that slowdown on the adoption curve? And I think it's purely to do with vehicle suitability and resale value and total cost of ownership. So, firstly, on the vehicle suitability, there was this, I think people think of new energy vehicles binary. They think electric or fuel cell or whatever. And I think McKinsey has quoted in your publications of saying you need both. But the policymakers didn't think like that. They thought of an electric-only solution. And the reality is, the electric car is very range sensitive. Under load, it doesn't do as well. So it's not suitable for commercial applications, and the weight of the battery, and etc., etc. So certain vehicle segments couldn't adopt it. There wasn't product available that was suitable. That's the first thing. The technology became scaled. To produce the batteries became cheaper, and the things. There was a retail price reduction of about 20% within an 18-month cycle. What happens to the current car owners? Now they can sell the vehicle. Pre-owned stocks escalated to the roofs. There was no ownership incentive as soon as your vehicle is pre-owned. And I think in the UK, there was like a 50% resale value loss in the UK. It wasn't as bad in Germany, but I think that played a big role into why that slowdown occurred. Because in my opinion, you cannot introduce technology that fast. I think it just showed the ownership cycle of technology started showing. In terms of that's my addition to that question. In terms of the hybrid and the plug-in hybrids, I think the PGM producers know well that they use more catalyst due to the sudden load cycles on the hybrid drivetrain. You need to have more catalyst in to absorb all the NOx's and the SOx's, so that's better. I think overall in the world it doesn't look massive what the contribution that hybrids do, but countries like Japan, and I'm disclosing some maybe not confidential information, but 50% of what Toyota produces in Japan is hybrids. That's significant. It's not the same for the rest of the world, but that's the way we are moving, and we've seen fantastic growth in hybrid, despite the fact that there's no, other than carbon tax, no other policies that actually drive that growth. We've seen a natural adoption in the market, so that's a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hybrid's positive for the PGM sector?
Definitely, hybrid is a positive problem, and I think if we can get more hybrid products in the commercial space, PGMs can actually invest in their own fleets in hybrid vehicles a lot more.
All right, thanks, Anton. Okay, so let's explore some of the other non-automotive sectors. So, Dominik, question for you, and this is a two-part question. So, will these sectors that I'm going to list now potentially offset declining autocatalyst demand? And if yes, which of the PGMs will benefit the most? So, could you please talk briefly on the sectors medical, chemicals, jewelry, and investment?
Yeah. Also welcome from my side. Normally when we talk about Heraeus, we refer to our company as the world market leader in precious metals outside of automotive catalysts, because we are not producing any automotive catalysts at all. So we are the world market leader in many niche applications, which are, in our point of view, very relevant to the PGM market overall. Quick answer to the question will be, will it be able to offset the potential decline that we see in automotive? Most likely not, because they are niche applications compared to the one large consumer, and there's also a certain difference in the relevance, obviously, for the three main PGMs. Last year we talked a lot about ruthenium, and I also revealed to you that ruthenium is my favorite metal, so I'm also amazed to see how it developed, since this 1 year, you might also remember. So, but I'm happy, to talk about the four applications that you outlined. Starting maybe with medical. So in the factories that we have, we see two main use cases for platinum in particular. Number one being anti-cancer treatments. So platinum is used in the form of carbo, cis, or oxaliplatinum as a cancer treatment. It's a very aggressive treatment, one has to say, because it kills the bad cells, but it also unfortunately kills the good cells. But few metric tons of platinum are every year consumed in this application ultimately. And second, and maybe this is even in terms of the production volumes a little bit more relevant, it's medical components. Medical components meaning pacemakers, electrodes, catheters, and we have 4 factories around the globe, one in the US, one in Costa Rica, 2 in Europe, where they're utilizing platinum and iridium mainly. And the reason is the biocompatibility of these metals. So they're non-corrosive, and I guess we all should know that it's good if nothing corrodes within the body, when you get one of these implants. The iridium is used mainly as a hardener material, also for your reference, and these alloys that we apply, they vary from 80-10, 90-10, including other elements that we have. So we see a growing market because more and more people get access to medical treatments, and therefore we are rather satisfied with this business and also with the metal consumptions within this industry. Second that you mentioned is the chemical industry. On the chemical side, we are a little bit concerned, to be very honest with you, because the world economy is weak. Platinum in particular, and also palladium, they are also used in the form of catalyst. Can be on a honeycomb, like in the automotive sector, can be on a carbon carrier, can be on an alumina oxide. And the demand is weakening, I guess for 2 reasons. One I outlined already, it's weak economic outlook. Raw materials are very high, and there's massive overcapacity, for certain chemicals which are produced around the globe. We are We are positive on the usage because, these big chemical plants, they can either operate or not operate, so use metal or not use the metal at all. And, it's obviously a tough decision to shut down a plant completely. Third you outlined is the jewelry sector. Here we're actually quite positive due to the price effects that we have seen versus gold. A lot of substitution in our point of view is taking place, I think for the first time ever in history due to the sharp increase in gold price. I mean, the white gold is now much more expensive, than the platinum, and the characteristics are very much the same in terms of the color. Obviously, platinum much harder. So we see a shift, and we have a factory, in Switzerland. It's mainly a gold and silver refinery, 50% of the business, and 50% of the business is production of luxury products, watch cases, semi-finished products for the jewelry industry. And these guys, they have always consumed platinum, and we believe they always will. I'm just a little worried as well, on the pricing side, because we believe gold will be pricing itself out to a certain extent. Platinum might be. And maybe, quoting a different metal and a development that we are currently seeing. Pandora might be well known, to some of the people here. They just recently announced they will cut their silver consumption, because they are the biggest producer globally of silver jewelry, by 80% over the next 2 years. And, they just switched to cheaper alloys. And I'm a little bit worried, that such a development could also potentially affect the platinum consumption. Last, you mentioned on the investment side, in the past, so I live in Germany, on platinum investments you pay 19% VAT. So historically we said, it's a stupid investment, but obviously the markets have also proven me wrong, because everyone who has invested, made massive profits. Also, to put it into perspective, we produce platinum investment bars, 100 grams, 1 ounce, 1 kilo, whatever your wallet can afford ultimately. And we have been sold out for months, because the demand has been really strong. It's now declining. And in our factory, we can either produce gold, silver, or platinum, palladium, and platinum demand has been super strong. And I think this is also ultimately seen in ETF inflows and other investment vehicles that we see. So these are 4 comments that we can give.
Okay, thanks, Dominik.
Perhaps I would add another industry. This is the electronics industry. So in electronics, we also see quite a nice development for PGMs because of their properties, but also because gold became so expensive. So electronics industry, which has a nice multiple, like the car industry, when it comes to all these consumer products, for example, they are looking very actively in optimizing their costs, and then they look into, for example, how can I get away from gold? And they are using gold quite a bit. I mean, of course, gold goes mostly in investment, but one of the few areas where gold is really used for some applications, it's in the electronics industry, so they look quite strongly into it. On the other side, for the jewelry, I'm not so optimistic because I know that the jewelers, they typically dislike this hardness of the platinum, so it's not easy to convince jewelers to switch away from the white gold, which is for me a ridiculous term, but it is the term in marketing, and it's very difficult to convince them really with all their production, which is so geared up for this soft to handle metal, white gold, into a very difficult process for them. So it's difficult to convince them. Also, it would be exactly for the consumers a nice way to shift away from this super expensive white gold into what the consumers seemingly anyway want, a valuable white jewelry instead of a yellow one.
Thanks, Bernhard. Whilst you have the mic, the same question to you, but can you please talk us through fuel cells, so the whole hydrogen economy, the aerospace sector, glass manufacturing, and oil refining?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there are another areas. We counted this morning about how often this word with H2 is spoken, so I will try to avoid to contribute to that one. A lot was talked about it already, and you also mentioned it. So for Umicore, on this hydrogen economy, sorry to use it finally, it's even for me, 25 years in the industry, I went now through the second time through some hype with the fuel cell. I remember 2002, there was already a hype, and everybody in Europe at least believed that 5 years later, 50% of the cars would drive around with fuel cells. So you remember this. So now we are through it again. I'm not sure if I will see it a third time coming in my life. But I think in the meantime, what has happened is that, and where we are standing in this curve now in hydrogen, is we have invested in the Western world enormously in R&D. Umicore has done R&D for fuel cell for 40 years. We have built our first production plant for mass production in Germany. Fortunately, we have invested in a production plant in Korea. Fortunately, we are going to open our biggest production plant in China this year, because that market is completely shifting to Asia, mainly China, and also Korea still, and perhaps thanks to Toyota in Japan as well. While in the US, at least as long as Mr. Trump is in power, nobody is interested at all to talk about it anymore. And in Europe, it was driven by politics, but the politicians are, and I was just at the German federal government 2 weeks ago, they are not interested in it anymore at all. So they have given up. So it will go the same way as the solar industry, I suppose. China will ramp up and then later supply to the market. So yes, I'm somewhat still optimistic for heavy duty, coming from China practically, and then providing there a very, very good total cost proposition for the fleet operators. So therefore, it has a space in the future, but being a European, I'm a bit sad that it's definitely not coming from Europe at all. And we, as an industry, as someone who is always looking in all applications for PGMs, yeah, we have shifted gears quite strongly into finding new applications where the properties of PGMs can be used, where they can make a difference. So there are really also nice trends. For example, the synthetic aviation fuel area, which certainly will come. Anyway, synthetic fuels will be very important also, because the European Union, for example, needs some outlet for getting away from their ban. And one way is to just simply say it's synthetic, so that's good for us as an industry at the end of the day. So there are quite a lot of things ongoing. And last but not least, there will be never 100% replacement of the ICE usage, so for all the catalysts. But I'm convinced it was also not really necessary. I'm not so sure how we see it when we meet in 2030. If you then still say for 2050 there's zero use for the older ones. I think in the 70s people believed that in 20 years there is no fuel and we anyway have to have something else. So I'm quite convinced there will be still a space for internal combustion engines.
Alistair, can I just say something on the internal combustion engine? And I think it wasn't mentioned in the material a lot, but it definitely has a place in the global south that we're seeing. Renewable fuels, in places like Brazil, ethanol, flex fuel vehicles, there's still a place for ICE engines. We see that in countries with high rainfall, high agriculture, it's massive in those countries. And it would be an ongoing solution. So I don't think it will only be fuel cell or electric vehicle. There will still be that demand as well, and they will need catalyst.
And perhaps one thing which was not mentioned, and I'm not sure how you take this into account in your study, this is the electric infrastructure for charging. So I have a plug-in hybrid. I'm driving this in Germany. I'm trying to charge this in the evening in Frankfurt at one of these public charging poles, which do exist in the meantime, so infrastructure was installed. And then the public charger tells me, sorry, we cannot charge because there's not enough power.
Big time power.
Yeah, but we don't have that problem in South Africa. That's not a South African problem.
So how should the world really have 100% electric charging? So
maybe to quickly react on this with 3 points. the chart that shows the electrification that I was just presenting before, the baseline was 10%. So I realized it looked a little bit that there's nothing in 2050, but it's just it's not zero. It's 10%.
Yeah.
So there's still, and I agree on that. The other thing with the grid, etc., we look into this topic constantly because it comes up again and again. But strictly speaking, it will not be it will be a challenge always, but it will not be some systematic, unovercomable issue. And we will be able to produce enough electricity for all the cars, and we will also be able to feed that into the cars through the grid. So let's not relax and say the grid will solve it for us. I don't think so. And the third point is very important to me. I'm actually a car engineer by background, and we need to realize that the electric car is just so simple that ultimately it will be cheaper than the combustion engine car. We have the pistons, the valves, the emission treatment, all that stuff. Electric motor is so dead simple, no gearbox. And the battery, yes, today it's still a bit expensive, but where did we come from? I was in Mercedes-Benz and McKinsey came to me and said that in, I don't remember the number of years, battery prices will go below $200 per kilowatt hour. And I said, like, never. Yeah, and today we are at 50. So it will come down, and it is fundamentally more simple, and therefore consumers will probably just choose this. And you made the point, there is not for every application a proper EV, but for the large majority of it, it will just be the choice for the customers. No maintenance, etc. So I think we might need to accept that there is this shift.
Thanks for that. Dmitry, do you mind just closing out a couple of other sectors which we haven't mentioned? So solar energy, microelectronics, and batteries.
Yeah.
How do you see the future of PGM demand?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So Palladium Center puts a lot of efforts in these three areas: solar, microelectronics, and batteries. A couple of words for each of the segments. So solar energy, the main alternative source of energy, maybe the future source of energy. Now it is currently operated on silicon solar cells. And they have two limitations. They have reached their fundamental capacity level, up to 30%. And they are very thick, and that is why they cost a lot. So the new trend technology in solar elements is so-called tandem for the panel, which is the combination of silicon and perovskite. So the perovskite has a wider fill factor, so it can catch the light during the sunset, the sunrise, and that is why it can enhance the total efficiency. And it is very thin, and that is why it can cost less. So now it has two problematics of efficiency and of the lifetime. And what we are doing, we are making the two types of products. First of all, we're making the additives to this perovskite active layer. And we have already got the results where we can boost the efficiency up to 15%. And then we are also making the tandem cell with 3 layers of palladium, like for the characteristics that already proven for palladium in microelectronics. We really think it's a big opportunity for palladium because now currently in China, top 5 giants, they do not have this technology. So the last year, the first technology transfer was made from the British startup, and they're actively going into this direction. So by the end of the year, we will have this first prototype, and we expect to distribute these technologies to the big Chinese market. So we expect if the tandem cells reach and the palladium finds its place, it will be like 0.5 to 1 million ounces of yearly demand in 2030, 2035. So in microelectronics, I fully support what my colleague has just said. I will just add that it is a tiny market for gold, but it's still 9 million ounces, so it's like palladium total demand. So it's for our PGM metals, it's a huge opportunity and a huge market. And we see how data centers for AI are growing, and they need these new generation PCBs. And they, of course, are worried about the high gold prices. So we, on one hand, making these new gold and palladium layers where we decrease the amount of gold and increase the amount of palladium. And on the other side, we're developing products for bonding wires, because bonding wires is also a big market for gold, and we believe that the combination of copper and palladium can replace this gold applications current. So we are pretty sure about 1 million potential ounces of additional palladium demand here too. Yeah, so batteries, it's about the lithium sulfur batteries. Probably you already heard a couple of times about this project. We're also believe in this. So lithium sulfur is like cheaper, lighter, with higher density than lithium ion, but it has a very short lifetime. Yes, and it has a short lifetime because sulfur is dissolving in the electrolyte and is degrading the cathode. So the palladium can neutralize it. So we're making a bunch of catalysts and other type of materials to neutralize this effect. And if this technology really enters the market, it will be like millions of ounces, at least 1.5 million. So that's our hopes about 2030.
Exciting, yeah. Okay, thanks for that, Dmitry. So Bernhard, just to close out this section, so the demand for PGMs within catalytic converters is going to drop off, maybe slower than anticipated, but it is going to drop off. All these sectors we've just mentioned, are they a drop in the ocean if we look at replacing or offsetting that, or is there some significance? Maybe talk us through, if you can, percentages or quantification.
It's more than a drop in the ocean. So it depends a bit on the metal. So on platinum, we have seen it today, only 1/3 goes in automotive catalysts. So even if this goes down, it's relatively kind of easy to replace it with other new upcoming demand. And you already described it for palladium, but the properties are sometimes a bit similar. So let's see if it is at the end palladium or platinum or both together. For palladium and for rhodium, of course, the challenge is larger because when you have 85% of today's use going into automotive catalyst, then you have such a huge volume that even if we have only a market share, or if it goes down by 50%, so how to really replace that total volume will be well, it's more than a drop, because we heard it, you shared a couple of things. I believe strongly, for example, in this electronics, also consumer product area, some other areas which were mentioned, but they are indeed often tiny then. And there also, you need to be aware that, for example, chemical industry, that stuff comes back pretty quickly again. So actually, you need to differentiate between things which really stay then out of the market and other things which come very quickly back. We call this even a closed loop practically system. So even if we increase dramatically in, for example, for glass production applications, the risk is quite high that this comes back again. So it's more than a drop, but anyway, I'm convinced that we have quite a long time.
Okay, thanks, Bernhard. Okay, so let's change tack slightly. Dominik, let's talk a bit about the energy transition. It's lost a bit of momentum globally since obviously Trump's been in power. What's your view on PGM demands within energy transition?
Yeah, so also within Heraeus, when we talk about the energy transition, we talk about the hydrogen economy. And basically, I'd like to quote a little bit what Greg Miller from Valterra has said earlier on, because second, I also would like to quote our head of hydrogen. His name is Philipp Walter, and 2-3 months ago he held a presentation internally with the title "From Hype to Realism." And I think this is also what Valterra ultimately has mentioned. It has significantly cooled off, I think, from the hype that we have seen. Maybe breaking it down in the 3-4 application areas where we are active in. Number one, hydrogen generation. As all of you are aware, iridium is the studied metal of choice for the PEM electrolysis. And as you're also all aware, with record high iridium prices at 8K, it's not looking, better for this application. And I think, ultimately a lot of companies are suffering in terms of, capital commitments that they already get from investors. On the other hand, on the positive side, we also see some projects, going to the market, and also not small, not in a megawatt, but a couple of 100 megawatts. So iridium is being consumed in this industry. And maybe also with the high oil prices, there might be actually a chance for hydrogen going forward. Second step, hydrogen purification. So you have trace levels of oxygen. This is established technology, has been there, but the consumption is tiny. We talk about 0.1, 0.2% platinum palladium concentration, in the catalytic system. Then number 3, and this is for our company, I would say the most promising one, is the whole field of storage and transportation of hydrogen ultimately. What has been studied a lot, a variety of different chemical binders like ammonia, for example, methanol, and LOHC. So we will have to see, but at least also here, projects are coming to market, and saying that again, ruthenium is my favorite metal, and it's the studied catalytic material, for these type of applications, particularly, to mention ammonia cracking, as one application field. And then I think on the usage side, the others know better than I do, in particular you. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dominik. Okay, so Anton, the commodity prices are high at the moment. So how can the PGM suppliers invest in this upcycle? So where should they focus their money? Is it on the hydrogen side, new industrial usages? Where should the money go?
Well, I would like it if they can place an order of a lot of hybrid vehicles, but you need to be realistic, and I think you need to invest in things that needs a push, that needs, the difficult things, and that's hydrogen at this stage. Let's be honest, it's a difficult thing to get off the ground. But I would say practically for the PGM producers in South Africa, they should focus on flexible, scalable, early adopting solutions. And I'm going to mention 2 that we're working on as a product to the market. And these are solutions that the PGM miners can hopefully use to decarbonize their own operations. So the first thing is we have a fuel cell module from Toyota that we are making a fuel cell generator from. Okay, you need to first produce the hydrogen, but you can have a 100 kilowatt multiples of plant that produces hydrogen through a PEM electrolyzer. It stores the hydrogen. So you produce it once you have curtailed renewable energy loss. You pump hydrogen, literally, and it can be seasonal storage, even over week storage, and then you use the fuel cell genset later to then introduce the power into your operation. So that's a solution we're working on currently, and hopefully I'll have something later this year that I'll start approaching some of these guys for. That's the one solution. The other one, we are working on a truck that runs on dual fuel. So it runs on diesel as a fallback, but it can, through the same ICE engine, it can have a range extending about 30% under load hydrogen as well, which is a flexible solution, and it can reduce your carbon footprint. And the price to convert that vehicle is not as much as what a fuel cell truck would cost. So these are the types of things that I think PGM should consider to invest in. And of course, I think a lot of them are aware about all these specific hydrogen venture capital companies. I'm not sure how you can see the impact of your investment into the development of the value chain. But those things are there.
Okay. What's your view on in the transport sector? So your big movements of materials. Obviously, you need your hubs for your hydrogen refueling. What's your view on the future? Is there a future, or is it a part?
There is a future, but you need to have a flexible solution. So something like a dual fuel is, or if I take even on ethanol, a flex fuel vehicle, it's ideal that if you don't have a specific fuel, you can fall back with what you have and what you know that's available. And when you have the new fuel, you introduce the new fuel. That is what is key. If you go with a fuel cell truck, you can only run on hydrogen. And if you don't have hydrogen, you're stuck. So that's not a nice developmental solution. And it's also the price point, I think it's a ×4 multiplier on the actual vehicle. It's very expensive. So it will come, but you need an interim developmental solution to get you there.
Okay, so that initial flexibility just to get you over that R&D.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Anton. Then, so Dmitry, what collaborations are taking place to develop new application uses for PGMs? What's in your realm?
Yeah, we are now obsessed with the generative AI. We really think that it will be a game changer. As the example as it was in drug industry. If you know that after alcohol make its design of the protein, the number of proteins increased from 150,000 to 2 million new proteins. So really, all the proteins that were made for the whole history of drugs, it increased in like 1,000 times. And I think that the next step is also for non-organic, for alloy new materials. We have a more difficult question because we do not have this database of real experiments like they have, because our databases are like materials in the ideal conditions, which can behave absolutely differently. But we should move in this direction, and we are now actively collaborating with the best material science university teams in order to make this AI platform, at least for the Palladium or PGM and central materials, so that we can be able to find the best PGM material for any type of process. It's a long, long way, but I'm sure that it will lead us to another kind of discussions and absolutely new forms of the materials. So yeah, I also invite everybody for collaboration, for data sharing, or making some bigger data sets in order to make these platforms faster.
Cool, thank you. Any closing remarks from anyone? What have we missed, the key insights, before we go over to Bernhard for Q&A? Sorted. Over to you, Bernhard. We give you some time.
Yeah, I refuse to be on a platform with so many qualified people, so I'm going to stand here. Some of these questions I sat here, Googled, these people are full of acronyms, and so I don't even understand some of the questions, I honestly have to say. So Anton, this has got your name written all over it. Huh? Mm-hmm. It's an anonymous question.
Okay.
I think I know your answer, but what would it take for South Africa to sell fuel cells or fuel cell electric vehicles as opposed to platinum? You've spoken about the South, you've spoken about the challenges. Just briefly, what would it take for South Africa to get there?
That's a chicken and egg question. And yesterday I said to somebody, we need Kentucky Fried Chicken. We need filling stations. You need
but
the
you
first.
Can have a corridor from Limpopo to Durban, man. Come on.
You need a pressurized filling system. A filling station. You need the first 5 in certain locations, and then you can start setting up milk run or closed loop systems. That's what you first need for it to start. And you're right. It needs to be on the corridor. The entry corridor would be well suited. Well, maybe if we can get it into Rustenburg, or you can get it into Limpopo, but you need the first stations. Up until we don't see that first station, you're not going to go anywhere with it.
And who's going to do that? The government?
We're putting up our own station at our head office later this year. We've already commissioned it with the actual unit with HISA, but it's a small unit. So we need that. And we are talking to government with Sasol, and I think Volterra is also part of those discussions, but you need that.
Dmitry, this is not a question that's here, but I once allowed you to present slides, and I decided never again because you made me jealous. Those beautiful facilities, and your whatever institute is just so impressive. How much money are you spending on Palladium R&D?
As we announced, we launched at the end of 2023, and we confirmed $100 million. So once this money are over, we will take a decision of
So you haven't even spent your first 100.
No, not
Can I
yet.
come and help? But I mean, that's obviously...
We have competitive prices in Russia.
That's obviously significant amounts that you are spending up. Let me quickly look at the questions here. The question speaks to the issues you guys have discussed. Does the interdependence between EV adoption, infrastructure, and grid capacity create bottlenecks for mass EV adoption? What does this mean for PGM demand? This is the crux of the thing, no? It's the interdependence. Who wants to? Bernhard, do you want
No,
to?
I mentioned it before
Yeah.
already, and when one can see already the limitations in a country which was recently still proud of being one of the developed countries called Germany, where it does not work now, and where at the same time governments, and this is also what I experienced when discussing with politicians, the governments still want to make their country green. And green means always electricity, electricity, electricity. So electricity for private household heating, electricity for cars, electricity for steel making, electricity for everything. So I think at the end might be that there is enough grid, but it would require enormous amounts also of electric power plants or dramatic gearing up of windmills and other things, because to really replace all applications, not only the cars, but also all the other applications which today don't run on electricity, like a steel mill. And then also typically the hydrogen is also coming from electricity ultimately. So everybody goes back to electricity to some extent. That's going to be, I think, the limiting factor very strongly.
I'll come to you in a moment, Jakob. Anton?
Bernhard, there's just something I just want to mention, and we forgot to mention it here today. So that's something that is a technology on the EV side that's going to start surfacing, called vehicle to grid, or virtual power plant.
Yeah.
That's when the car gives charge back into the system. And if you set up an aggregator and you have people working from home or whatever, that power, that peak time power problem can be solved with something like that.
Yeah.
So, there are those clever technologies that will come online, people will organize themselves, and then it's not an issue anymore. So I can agree with Jakob, what he said today. We need to be wary that EVs is not going away. Those things will enable that.
Just to challenge this, then I even prefer a plug-in hybrid so that my car overnight was discharged for the grid and I can still drive with my combustion engine next day to work.
We know where Bernhard is on this thing. But Jakob, can I be blunt and say this is a very Western capitalist view of the world? It doesn't work because it doesn't make money from where it go. The problem is somebody else has to solve before we get to it. But then China's done all of this. So if we talk about the adoption of electric vehicles in China, they've done this. So aren't we just approaching this wrong? Or can it only work in China? I mean, just give me
the high level of electrification?
Yeah. Why can they do it? I mean, aren't they this backward country that can do nothing wrong? Cheap labor, bad environment. I mean, that's the bullshit we tell ourselves in the West. Yet they've
we
done
do
it.
still tell us?
I hear that often. I don't believe that.
Oh no, China.
So why can China do it and we can't do it? What's the key differences here?
That's hard to say for me on the stage because we usually don't talk too much about policy. But it has a lot to do with policy and planning and incentivization and long-term planning. So let me not go there too deep, but then it also was generating a lot of acceleration and advancement from a lot of hunger and a combination of a society which basically was very hungry of achieving very good planning, at time cheap labor. Actually, it's today not even anymore the case. Yeah, we now go to other manufacturing hubs in Southeast Asia. But before we got in all the details, I think the most important point is policy and planning. How this has been achieved. And then,
will and commitment,
not to lose that point, which is also often for breakthrough ideas in North America, relevant, a very large domestic market. So there was the possibility to actually fuel enough demand for scale-up of industry just by yourself.
Yeah.
So you can actually do all this stuff, supply, demand, policy, you can all do this kind of in-house. But just one additional thought on this discussion around grid, EVs, uptake, impact on PGM. I stay firm with the point that the grid, etc., will not be the problem. We might see imbalances temporarily, so some hiccups. But what is still important, and maybe it resonates with you, the cost of the charging, the cost of the fast charging, that's becoming a challenge depending on which exact market you look at. Just to come with the German example, if I charge my electric vehicle on a fast charger, it's more expensive than refueling it, which when I first realized that came to me as a surprise because I thought the electricity should always be cheaper, but it's not the case. And that would then, of course, have some impact because if we get into some kind of grid struggle, then we might also see that at the price point, and that could then be an element that slows it down a little bit, but fundamentally wouldn't change the whole game.
Anton, I've heard it before, but I think I absorbed it better now when you pointed out that part of the hype curve was in the resale value of the car. But that's not impossible to fix. I mean, if you approach the same thing again, I mean, again, we're in the space of policy and incentives and so on. But I mean,
it's not impossible. So in my opinion, something it will take 3 to 5 years and then it's solved.
Yeah.
But it's like a bullwhip effect. So it's the same thing. There will be an impact. It will slow down. Something else will move. So it will taper. Now there's a lot of response, but it will 3 to 5 years. It's solved.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing with all of these things. I mean, if you take a 20-year view, none of these things really needs to be constraints anymore. No? 2 years, 3 years, we can have the. I get to the questions I don't understand. So perhaps the person who put it understands. SAF, I think that's a company. Do we know SAF?
Sustainable Aviation Fuel.
Oh, that one. Okay. You see, I tried to Google it. I mean, if I tell you what came up when I Googled it, you won't want to hear it. SAF is now produced using nickel catalysts. What benefits can PGMs bring to the process aside from a price increase? Who wants to answer that? Is that just a statement of fact? So,
I can answer. We tried to make the Palladium catalyst, and really it has no effect besides a more expensive price. We lost this project.
So there will be certain products with catalysts that aren't accessible to a higher price catalyst. Is that, Dmitry? Is it a lost cause? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we have closed the project.
So they
Very
have closed
nice,
it, we
clear
didn't close
answer,
it.
actually.
So talk to Umicore, we still are on it.
But we tried only Palladium. Maybe Platinum works better.
So Jakob, this one, although it's spelled Jacob here, Jakob, this one has got your name to it. So perhaps we can see if the rest of the panel want to also comment. Is switching to lithium sulfate the way to cut battery prices? The new, is it sulfate? No.
Sulfur.
L-I-S.
LIS.
Yeah, LIS, lithium sulfur batteries.
Is that the new thing? Is that the best thing? Is that the way to cut battery prices? Is it technology?
No, actually, when you look at the different chemistries, and coincidentally just looked this morning at a chart, it is not really on the roadmap for the car industry, for the truck industry as of yet. It's always discussed at the site a little bit to come up. But you mentioned that the lifetime is the biggest issue. And the lifetime, you can actually then circle back to the resale value of the cars. So it's not yet market ready. And we have a couple of other battery technologies actually in the pipeline that would come first. So that topic is something for post 2035.
I won't be here, so we can drop it down. So that sits further down.
It's further down. It's not relevant at the moment, but it's been worked on. Yeah.
But Toyota's got a
No, but
contrarian
look,
view.
it's normally any technology like that. They have to build a mega plant to depreciate the production or amortize the production. So, and you have to sweat your assets. So it won't come quickly online. The old plants need to be paid off first before the new one, and the old plants would be cheaper battery compared to the new technology.
So, again, I'm asking this to you guys because somebody thinks you're the right people to answer this. What is the cost of a hydrogen filling station compared to the PGM industry market cap? Feels like a drop in the ocean. The industry should get this done. So, philosophically, is it the industry's duty to do this?
Okay, so I can answer the tangible thing. One filling station, you're looking at about 100 million rand. Or
100 million rand.
Yeah.
That's a shitload of even dollars. I mean, even if you divide it by 20.
So the thing is you need to pressurize the hydrogen quite a lot. There's cooling, there's a lot of things that need to happen. So it's quite expensive.
I don't want that in my backyard. I'm a NIMBY now, not in my backyard. Are there any risks associated with it?
It's actually not as risky as, in my
As it
opinion,
sounds.
as fuel, because hydrogen evaporates like this. So it's less risky actually. It's just you need to pressurize it so much.
Okay, I don't like pressure. It sounds dangerous to me. But then the question, anybody wants to weigh in, is this, should the platinum industry be doing this? As a shareholder and a director, I have some strong views, but I will not express them. I'll ask you guys.
Let me maybe give an analogy. Companies who drive this in some markets are companies like Linde, for example.
Yeah.
They
logical
look at
Yeah.
future benefits in their sector from now being a first mover and going into doing this. But if we then consider the impact on the PGM industry, if this is happening at low scale, for example, for trucks, it's a bit, maybe going into the Hydrogen Council and being active there and driving it, etc., that could make a lot of sense. I'm not sure actually, are the PGM companies mostly in the Hydrogen Council?
Valterra has just stepped up to a leadership role there with Sasol and others, yeah.
So that does make sense, and then teaming up, especially if we talk about trucks and fuel cell EVs, we talk about hub to hub, so not about the spokes or distribution. So you don't need, you made this point as well, Anton, you don't need so many of these refilling stations, but they are the enabler to get started. So the answer is, why not?
You need collaboration. You need at least 2 or 3 different industries to work together to get it established.
Which we are fantastic at in South Africa. This is our core competency, collaboration. That is a joke. Yeah, you can all laugh on it. We are not good at that. We get McKinsey to come and tell us to do that, and then we ignore them. Is there a future for green ammonia to feed the hydrogen demand? I mean, this is the whole, I think the platinum industry doesn't care. Give us hydrogen. But then green was the narrative. Anybody wants to comment on that?
Yeah, I can maybe talk about it. I think there will be, a market for it in the future, but we also have to see, and we are a believer in the ammonia industry, also given the fact that, particularly for the ammonia oxidation, nitric acid, platinum, palladium, rhodium are being used in the form of gases. And the question is just always with this green, who's willing to pay the price tag? And our company, we claim to be also very sustainable company, so we believe in this green. But I think you need to find the right customer or consumer who's willing, to pick up the bill to a certain extent. I can tell you, because we also had these discussions earlier on primary material versus recycling, or as Sebani would say, it's a mix, it's symbiose, to a certain extent. And we have the same opinion. We think primary production is essential. Without a primary production, our company, and we are a super large refiner, we could not exist, because there's just not enough metal in the secondary flows. And I can also tell you, we have customers who are willing to pay a premium for recycled material. But these are also companies, who sell products that can easily consume, this premium. For example, in the luxury sector, where maybe the metal price is not the determining sector, but there are other areas. I'm certain, for green platinum or green palladium, Toyota would not pay a premium, to use it in the auto catalyst, because it will exactly function the same way. And so I think, yeah, there will be a market also for green ammonia, but the question is, who's going to pay a price tag? You need to find the right consumer.
So is there anybody, I'm so desperately trying to help you to find a use for ruthenium, Mr. Ruthenium. Perhaps you can ask your colleagues, is there any use for ruthenium? That guy believes in ruthenium more than anybody else I've ever met.
But the market has supported me a lot, I would say, in my statement. And our company has always been a believer. Ruthenium at $300 is massively, undervalued compared to its outstanding characteristics that it ultimately has. And also, our company opinion is: are we happy that the prices have increased that sharply? No. Because it's not a signal, of a healthy market. Ultimately, the consumer base is scared to a certain extent, and but the demand is definitely there, and it's driven by factors that we have also seen. We mentioned the full AI push, and this AI push, is linked to increase in data storage needs, and data storage is obviously then linked to ruthenium consumption, and therefore, we still have the opinion that ruthenium is going to have a bright future. We also, at the very point, must say that everything comes at a certain price point. And with ruthenium being at 1800, I think many people, including the miners, are happy. And it was just a byproduct that it just had in the mix. Maybe it's now even a little bit more strategic. But we must watch these prices also a little bit careful. And I was traveling to a few mines this week, and I think everyone is really happy, that the prices are what the prices are. I can tell you some consumers are not, so we need to find the right balance to a certain extent.
The last question is actually quite interesting, and perhaps you can all weigh in on it. One issue in many countries will be tax. Large share of running costs of ICE is tax. Certainly in South Africa, we pay a lot of money before we even start the car. Now, UK is implementing a per mile charge for BEVs, but that's already unpopular. So is tax and tax on fuels, is this skewing normal market dynamics? Anybody? It's not policy per se. I don't want to put you in a space where you don't want to be.
Definitely, the East tax does play a role. We see it that there's some people that are converting their vehicles to LPG purely and simply because there's a lower tax on it. So that does play a role, but I can also say there's models in the world where they are taxing the renewable electricity as well. Tax will always play a role, and it will get, I suppose when it gets there, they will introduce a tax like they do.
If we magically whisk ICE engines off the road in South Africa, SARS will have a gap. We'll have a tax gap, and I suppose there's a different dynamic in every country.
I would add to this, it's not only tax, it's also subsidy. When you look into the statistics, also the curve, so when in many European countries the subsidies ceased for the EVs, then suddenly all the consumers decided, shitty car, I go back to internal combustion engine. So you see how quickly consumers indeed look at it almost from a little, they will not do a sophisticated calculation of total cost of ownership, but
it's about 20%.
They do a kind of intrinsic calculation where they look at how much does the car cost, and you're right, long term for sure the electric cars will be cheaper than a combustion engine and cheaper than a fuel cell car. So they know already what are my costs on the purchase side. Then you have the selling side as well, which today for many consumers is still an unknown when it comes to selling the battery electric vehicle. But as soon as this is an established system where they at their kitchen tables discuss about, the neighbor sold his one and the discount was only so and so small. So they take this into consideration, and then they take into consideration how much does it cost to me to have the fuel. The fuel goes in many countries with the tax. How much is the insurance? So insurances, as far as I know, tend to insure cheaper pure electric cars and very cheap are the hydrogen cars because they have some statistic that they are never involved in accidents. So they look at these things, and it will over time balance out. In the past, they did this by diesel costs. The diesel car was always more expensive than the petrol car by buying. But when you have a long distance driving around, then you know, oh, I'm still better off with the diesel car, at least in the past, before the Volkswagen scandal happened and it killed it.
I want to take you all out of your comfort zones completely, because you've done it to me for the last 55 minutes. One question. 30 years from now, are we still mining PGMs in South Africa? I'm starting with you. Yes or no? Simple.
Yes.
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 This is groupthink. I mean,
Sure, of course.
that's better than yes.
Also in Russia.
I also just have a yes.
Ladies, gentlemen, let's get going. 30 years.
Thank you.
Real mine. Thank you. I think it may be tea time.